Reports by leave. Senator Back.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. I seek leave to table a delegation report.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted. Senator Back.
Thank you. I present the report of the Australian Parliamentary delegation to the Republic of Indonesia, which took place from the 27th of September to the 1st of October 2015. Madam Acting Deputy President, 4 participants with the Secretary of the delegation, Ms Sophie Dunstan, visited Indonesia. Along with me were Senator Anne Urquhart from this place, Mr Ewan Jones, the member of Herbert, and Mr Stephen Jones, the member for Throsby from the other place. There were those who thought they were identical twins, Madam Acting Deputy President. I had to inform our hosts indeed that
Senator
they weren't.
Back, you just sought leave to table a document, but are you also seeking leave to make a statement?
I do seek leave to make a statement, Madam Acting Deputy President.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted. Senator Back.
Thank you. I will then continue, if I may, in terms of the membership of the delegation, Madam Acting Deputy President, and pass on my thanks and that of the delegation to the Honourable Australian Ambassador to Indonesia, Mr Paul Grigson, the First Secretary, Mr Murray O'Hanlon, the Second Secretary, Ms Annalise Young, and Mr Monty Pounder, who so ably looked after the group in the visits we made to Jakarta and to Balikpapan in Indonesia. The importance, of course, Madam Acting Deputy President, as you know, of the relationship with Indonesia, our largest nearest neighbour, second only to Papua New Guinea in terms of proximity, and of course a population of some 250 million people, a country with whom Australia has the opportunity to do much more business. Our relationship over the last few years has been somewhat strained, but I'm delighted to be able to confirm and report that the meeting of Prime Minister Turnbull with President Widodo only recently has certainly turned the quality and the direction of that relationship around. Madam Acting Deputy President, if I can turn briefly to trade, in 2013 our two-way trade with Indonesia was worth some $15 billion, of which 11.5 was in goods and 3.5 in services. But of course there's enormous capacity to increase that trade relationship, and I look forward to that happening into the future. In the goods areas, wheat, other agricultural products, sugar and molasses, export of live animals, of course, live cattle to Indonesia is now back on track as a very significant trade area, crude petroleum and cotton. And of course in the services area, Madam Acting Deputy President, the importance of education cannot be overemphasised, and we will see more into the future as we see more Indonesian students studying in Australia. And of course under the new Colombo plan, I'm pleased to report to the Chamber the single largest country to which Australian New Colombo Plan students wish to go is actually to Indonesia. The group had the opportunity in the education space to actually visit a madrasa, a school where Australia is providing enormous support, and the Australian financial support under our aid program has now moved from actually physical construction and upgrading of buildings to improving the standards and governance and educational standards of the principals, the school administrators and the school teachers. And in fact this pilot program is so successful, the one coordinated by Australia, Madam Acting Deputy President, that the Indonesian Department of Education is now rolling out that same program throughout their schools in Indonesia. In Balikpapan we had the opportunity to meet with a number of educators to learn from them what more we can do. Many of them, in fact, had had secondary and or tertiary education here in Australia, so they knew our country well, and again appreciative of the relationship between our two countries. In Balikpapan, the group visited Tees Brothers, obviously a Queensland-originated company, and Coates Hire. And in both instances, significant numbers. I think Coates Hire, out of 160 staff, only had 3 expats. And in the case of Tees, a very, very active program undertaken to Australian certification levels in a range of trade skills areas, welding, diesel mechanics, etc. And we were keen to know what were the equivalent standards, and they informed us that they were sending many of those who had completed their apprenticeships down to work in Brisbane, where they performed very, very well, and indeed were so much in demand that there were requests for them to stay. Madam Acting Deputy President, you would recall from your military experience. Balikpapan was the scene of one of the last battles of the Australian infantry in July of 1945, when our troops were able to maintain a beachhead and then overcome the Japanese on that particular location. And the group had the privilege and the pleasure of visiting what is now Chevron's headquarters on Balikpapan, where we obviously laid wreaths and reflected on the contribution made by our Australian troops. And that contribution is not lost when we met local government officials in that particular city. Madam Acting Deputy President, Indonesia remains a strong neighbour, a very important trading post, and I was delighted that the delegation was able to have the impact it did.
Thank you, Senator.